Alright, get in loser, we're going healing. You don't hate yourself. You just look at yourself through the eyes of people who fail to love you. You may be watching this and you feel that you're a person that is like hard to love. Like you're just too much. Like you're just too loud, you're just too emotional, you're just too sensitive. But what if I told you that these things are not flaws to begin with? It's not that you hate yourself, but because you have been accustomed to a certain belief from a young age, that's basically all you've known your entire life. You only see yourself through the eyes of people who haven't really seen you. You basically just internalize that. Every time you made a mistake, or every time you get emotional, or every time you ask for too much, you start spiraling and you start overthinking and you start having this feeling like you're just not allowed to be yourself, because somewhere deep down, being seen means being rejected. The ex that left you, for example, when you were vulnerable, or the parents that only gave you affection or only gave you love when you were achieving, or when you were being useful, the friend that made you feel replaceable. They became that voice inside of your head. You have mistaken their inability to love you as evidence that you're unlovable. You went like, okay, so here's proof. I'm unlovable because that person treated me so and so. Sometimes in life, we aren't really carrying our own beliefs or our own set of ideas. Sometimes we're not carrying around self-hate like that. We're not born hating ourselves. We are just carrying around other people's projections of us, whether it be their criticism or their absence or their neglect or their judgment or their coldness. And because we have been accustomed to that all our life, we kind of mistaken it for our reflection, when it really isn't. Just because somebody in your childhood made you feel that you were unworthy, you're gonna grow up thinking that you are unworthy. Nobody is born unworthy. Because trauma is stored in the body, you may be in this adult body right now, but you're still thinking through the childhood wounds that were in your body since you were 7. And if you never process those emotions and you never process this trauma, you're going to keep acting through these wounds, even when you're an adult and even when you're 50 or 60 years old. And here's the thing about people, right? However they treat you is never personal. What people think of you is literally none of your business. It's just a reflection of them as a person, of them as a character, of the things that they experienced in life, of their own perception of the world and of you. I was reading this book, This Is How You Heal by Brianna Wiest. I think that's how you pronounce her name. There are basically infinite versions of you in this world. So there's the version of you that your parents see you. There's a version of you that your friends see you. There's a version of you that your partner sees you. There's a version of you that your boss sees you. None of these matter except for the version that you see yourself with, except your perception of yourself. Their inability to see your worth had nothing to do with your worth. Their inability to love you had nothing to do with you being lovable or not. Their failure to love you was not your failure to be loved. People may see you like the most confident girl in the world and the most beautiful girl in the world. Another person may see you that you're really ugly. Everybody has their own perception of beauty, right? Beauty is in the eye of the beholder. Some may see you that you're like super duper skilled. Some may see you that you're just, at beginner level. Some may see you as somebody that is very, very kind and warm. And some may see you that you're cold, right? None of these opinions matter except for the one that you tell yourself every single day. And I had that, okay? Because for the longest time ever, I thought that I had confidence issues and I thought that I had self-esteem issues, but I was just looking at myself through eyes of people that didn't really see my worth. This all changed the day that I started to sit and question all of my beliefs and question everything around me. I stopped shrinking myself and I stopped trying to fit into the standards and I stopped trying to conform to their perception of love or perception of worth. And they're not to be blamed for not seeing my worth, because at the end of the day, I don't know what they went through and what caused them to think that way. So I have to detach myself and I have to remove all of that self-doubt from me just because they were doubting me. I have to think of myself worthy because this is literally my birthright. I have to think of myself lovable because, again, this is my birthright. Just because God created me, then I'm already loved, then I'm already worthy. And I don't need anybody's opinion to tell me something that goes against my birthright. This was actually something also that Miriam Uzerli was talking about in an interview. And her being like literally one of the most beautiful women on earth. And she was basically saying that one of the most hurtful comments that she was told is that a man that she was sitting with at a restaurant on Valentine's Day, this man had had the audacity to compare her to three women that were walking into the restaurant and they were like Instagram perfect, everything perfect by like society beauty standards. And he had the audacity to compare her to these women, and he said these women are like, they're so beautiful, and only if you were to put that much effort in yourself to look like them. And it was never about Mariam Uzerli's beauty. It was just about the reflection of this man about how insecure he was. It was never about her. It has got nothing to do with her. So guys, it's really just about perception. Literally, people's perception of you was never personal. And this does not only go for looks, it also goes for feeling love. If you're the type of person, because of a emotional wound that you may have had from childhood, you chase emotionally unavailable people. This was just due to the wound. Somebody convinced you in your childhood that you were just hard to love when you weren't. So now, when you're chasing somebody who is emotionally unavailable, it gives you the same familiar feeling that you had in childhood, that you had to chase for people's love. You were never too much. You were just in environments that made you feel small because this is what benefited them. This also goes for boundaries, by the way. So no, you're not unlovable. You were just loved by people who didn't know how to receive love without conditions. It just shows and it just highlights their own wounds that maybe when they were little themselves, they didn't receive that love unconditionally. And so this is how they're treating people the same way now in their adulthood life. So you're not dramatic. You are just too self-aware and too emotionally aware in a world that kind of tends to punish emotional honesty or like emotional vulnerability. It's just that people cannot meet you on that deep level of self-awareness. They cannot even connect with themselves in order to be able to connect with you. You don't have to keep shrinking yourself in order to be loved and accepted. This is the mindset shift on this. You have to start unlearning all of the beliefs that you have been believing deep down all along your entire life. You have to kind of like, let's say, audit the voice inside of your head. You have to ask yourself, like, is this really true? Like, is this really my voice? Or somebody else told me to believe that? Or is it somebody's voice that I needed love from? You have to question every single belief and every single negative thought. You have to interrogate the negative thought. This is also mentioned in that same book. You cannot trust everything you feel and you cannot trust everything you think. These thoughts, like this anxiety that you may be having, may be coming from a place of wounds, not your real self, by the way. You also need to talk to your inner child and heal that part of them that was wounded. There's this practice that I've kind of been doing myself lately. In order for you to heal your inner child, you have to talk to the younger version of you and talk to them with such like a comforting and loving and vulnerable way so that they can feel safe and they can feel loved after believing the opposite for so long, and like change the narrative for themselves. Every time you're being harsh on yourself and every time you tell yourself, oh, I'm ugly, oh, I'm unworthy, oh, I'm unlovable, oh, I will never be loved exactly the same way that I want, oh, I will never find true love, oh, I will never have my dream job. Every time you're sabotaging and every time you are talking to yourself in a negative light like that, you have to picture that 7-year-old and ask yourself, would you talk to them like that? Would you talk to that child version of you like that? Or would you talk to your friend like that? And if you think about it on a much more deeper level, if you have treated yourself like that in the past, I want you to look back at certain situations that you are being too harsh on yourself. You are treating yourself the same way and you're talking to yourself the same way that the people that hurt you were talking to you like. I'm sorry, I probably needed to hold your hand. You are treating yourself, in that same negative light or in that same criticizing or judgmental or harsh light that the people that hurt you were treating you with. You need to be so self-aware that you never wanted to be like them. You never wanted to be like the people that hurt you. You have to surround yourself with people that love you and have the best heart for you. They have to reflect love and not reflect the lack or not trigger the lack that you have been dealing with. If you keep looking at yourself through a mirror and that mirror convinces you that you're unlovable or you're unworthy, you need to stop looking in that mirror and look at another mirror. And by the way, I'm not talking about mirrors. You also need to stop shrinking yourself. Be loud, be complicated, be sensitive, be weird, And while you're doing that, tell yourself that you're still lovable. Okay, like don't burn the house for sure, but like even if you break the plate, even if you spill the coffee, even if you make a mistake, tell yourself I'm still lovable like this, no matter the mistakes I do. You never hated yourself. You were just taught to look at yourself that way through filters, through performance. This is something I also talked about in one of my previous videos. Performing somebody that is super successful and super perfect so that, I would never feel empty. So you were never too sensitive and you were never too complicated. They just lack the awareness and the understanding and the depth that you required and that you needed. And they were never able to give you that because they themselves hadn't even reached that level yet. They lacked the emotional maturity or the emotional, availability to really understand you like that. It's just because they're avoiding it themselves. They don't want to deal with it themselves. They don't want to deal with their emotions themselves, and this is why they cannot accept yours. But you know what? It's really not about them. You're the main character of the story now. So as long as you give yourself that understanding and as long as you give yourself that validation, you don't really need anybody else's love or appreciation, right? Because you already now give that to yourself. So you don't need to change anything in yourself in order to be loved or accepted. You just need to look at yourself through a different perception. Literally delete, cancel out the idea to begin with that you ever had to change yourself in order to be loved. Because again, you've been birthed with that. You required more, but they couldn't hold that for you. So stop proving that you're enough. Stop shrinking yourself. Stop dimming your light because people don't want to see you shine. You already have all of those amazing and beautiful like traits and qualities inside of you, but you were just too scared to bring them out. Be like your real true self because the world needs more brave and more courageous people and authentic people and real people.